I started this business for flexibility. I started this business for freedom. I started this business so I could have more time with my family. And instead, I'm working even more. Well, hey there, friends. Welcome back to the podcast. This is podcast episode number 514. We're going to talk about being a prisoner to your business. Friends, do you have any idea how many times I have felt like this in my business? Like, you know, I started to be an entrepreneur so I would have time and I would have flexibility. And now I feel like I've built something that I can't get away from. And it's more regimented than it would have been if I was working for somebody else. And it's um it's an interesting thing that happens when when your business begins to grow and suddenly like you thought it was going to be one way, but when there is growth in your business, often you're like, okay, but the reality is like the dream was this, but the reality is this. And so that's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about what happens at times when we end up feeling like a prisoner to our business, how we can fix that, what we need to shift, etc. And I will tell you right now, I feel like a prisoner to the weather in Missouri. We are bracing for yet another snowstorm, another one, you guys. It is the by far the snowiest like season I can ever remember in Kansas City. And I love snow. I just don't like ice and I just don't like the cold. And so Jason and I and the girls are headed down to Florida to our new place, Bougie on Miramar Beach tomorrow. I'm super excited about it, but I wanted to get this podcast episode recorded for you before I left. Okay. So prisoner to the weather. So we're leaving. If you're a prisoner to your business, I want you to stick around. Okay. So here's what I know to be true that a lot of times people will go into business, especially like an online business space. It's different kind of for a brick and mortar, but you'll go into business for yourself because you have these, grandiose ideas of freedom. And the truth is there's a lot of freedom that comes with, being a business owner. I feel like I have worked really hard to have a ton of time freedom. I have worked really hard to have a lot of financial freedom and never take that for granted. But we also have a lot of like location freedom, which Jason and I love. I love that our family can just drop everything, and we made plane tickets last night at 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, and we're leaving 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. And so I love the flexibility. It's only because I've got time freedom, financial freedom, and location freedom that we're able to do that, right? And so like I love that about being a business owner. But it certainly didn't happen overnight, because what happens so often is we have these dreams of all this like freedom, and we're sold a certain story, especially in the online space, that, in order to attain a similar lifestyle to what I have or whatever coach is talking, like this is what you need to do, etc. But in the more beginning stages, like let's say you've hit your first six figures, okay, but you haven't really, been able to scale a lot past that or whatever. Well, it is about the $100,000 a year mark where a lot of time business owners will come to me and they're like, okay, I started this business for flexibility. I started this business for freedom. I started this business so I could have more time with my family. And instead, I'm working even more. Instead, I'm tied down even more. Instead, I'm constantly on phone calls. I am constantly having to be on social media. Sorry, I'm just putting on lotion after lotion because it's dry. It's dry in Kansas City. And so often, like the reality of being a business owner and the dream of being a business owner are out of alignment. They're often like not congruent. And this happens at like different stages in business where you start, you grow to a certain point, and then you got to kind of readjust, realign, shift some things. And then you have a little bit of growth, and then there you come to another point where you're like, okay, I have to kind of adjust some things, because I can tell you, having, done millions of dollars a year for the last this is my 7th year of being we hit the $2 million a year threshold. That was like our big year where we jumped back in 2018. And so I can tell you that there's certain numbers that everything needs to change when you hit. It's when you hit $100,000, when you hit $1 million, and getting over that $3 million a year is a huge threshold that requires a whole different type of thinking, a whole different way of doing things, etc. Okay. And so I know that when people start, they have all these grandiose ideas of what it's going to look like. You thought that if you made, a certain amount of money, like let's say if you got to six figures a year, that then you would have less work and more ease. But instead, what you find is that you're stuck being on social media, you're stuck constantly on calls, you're tied to your laptop, and you really feel like, okay, this is the way I thought it would be, but instead I feel like my business is running me instead of like me running my business. Can anybody relate to that? Okay. And what happens is there's kind of this trap that happens where more revenue ends up meaning for a lot of people more work. And this is how so many entrepreneurs, especially over the six-figure mark or at the six-figure mark, will find themselves on this hamster wheel because they've hustled their way to their first $100,000 a year. Okay. You've hustled your way, you've white knuckled it, you've launched a million things, you've sold a bunch of stuff, you've had your head down, you've worked hard, you've done all the things in your business. Okay. But now you get to this point where you're like, and now I'm just tapping out. Now I'm maxed out because you have no time to create anything new. You have no time to like dream about, what business could look like. You have no time to like be the visionary because you're constantly just putting out the fires that happen with like everyday business stuff. Okay. And the truth is like scaling should not equal working longer hours, but there has to be this shift that happens in your thinking, this shift that goes from like grinding to growth. This like, how do I slow down so that I can speed up? How do I quit grinding so I can really grow? How do I quit hustling so much in order to be able to scale? Because otherwise, this is why a lot of entrepreneurs get stuck at like the $100,000 mark and they have a really hard time going over that because they've really like they've maxed out their number of hours. They have so much time and effort and energy is spent into just putting out fires every day. And you know what I'm talking about. It's like it's when you are just you in your business, you're doing all of the things and wearing all the hats. So you're doing your marketing. You're the one posting on social media. You're also doing all the admin work. So you're answering all your emails. You're making travel arrangements if you're, headed out to a business conference or something. You're returning customer service emails. You're also in charge of sales. You're also in charge of delivery, whether it's content delivery or delivering a course or, delivering a product. And so it's interesting that there comes a time in business where there has to be like this shift where you stop thinking and behaving like an employee of a business, your own business, and you really start to like shift over to thinking like a CEO. Because if you're still in like employee mindset in your business, you'll still do all the things. You'll still be the one doing all the marketing, all the social media, all the reach outs, all the emails, all the admin work, all the sales, all the delivery, all the customer service, all those things. Which means when you're wearing all of those hats, you can't actually wear the hat of like a CEO. You just can't. There's no way you can do all of the things. And so this is what happens. When there are things demanding your attention every day. I'm not sure why I'm clapping right now, but when there are things demanding your attention every day, this customer is upset. This training has to be delivered. This podcast has to be recorded. These emails need to be returned. You end up so in the weeds. And if you don't know what that means, it's an old restaurant term when you're in the weeds. It means basically like you can't see the forest for the trees. So you end up so in the weeds in the day to day that there's no time or opportunity for you to do any vision casting, for you to do any daydreaming. Listen, I just read a story the other day about how important it is. I wish I could find it on my phone real quick. For creative entrepreneurs in particular, to just have time to do absolutely nothing. Because it's in that time of doing absolutely nothing that you actually get so much work done. You get so much work done. Where can I find? Does anybody else just literally hate what the iPhone, what do they keep doing to like our phones? Like, why can't I just find screenshots? Like, why do you keep jacking with my stuff? I also did like the iOS 18 update last night, and now my email looks totally janky. I was trying to figure out why am I not getting any emails today? Why am I not getting emails? It's because it like switched it. So at the top, I was only getting emails that were like priority. Oh, what? I don't even understand what happened. But anyhow, the screenshot that I know I have on my phone was something along the lines of creative entrepreneurs in particular, they just need time to sit and stare into space. And I can remember, you guys, when I was, I've done this, like, it's really interesting. There are some things I feel like I don't have an MBA in business, but I have an MBA in experience. And I feel like the Holy Spirit has just um, shown me some things about entrepreneurship. There's been baptism by fire, of course, because I had to walk through a lot of, but also just like I have an ability to see kind of and actually participate in things that a lot of times I won't even realize until later. Oh, that's actually a necessity. Oh, that's how an entrepreneur should have been acting. Oh, that's actually really good for you. Oh, that's whatever. So I did a podcast one time about like, why it's so important to be near water, especially if you're burnt out, if you're having a lot of creative roadblocks, if you're a business owner and you can't think of new ideas, like get around water, right? Like I knew that without ever having to read a study on it, and then that just kind of validated all the things, right? Well, I knew that as an entrepreneur that it was really necessary for me just to like sit and stare into space. And for years, back even when I owned my own painting company, people would say, okay, so the girls are out painting for you every day. Like, what do you do? And I would jokingly get snarky because a lot of times it would be like, on a job site, which, is predominantly men in new construction. And so a lot of times it would be men in the construction industry, well-meaning, of course, who'd be like, so the girls are here painting every day. What do you do? And I was like, I get paid to think. Okay. I get paid to think, to plan, figure some crap out. Like I didn't even realize that that's actually what, the visionary and the entrepreneur should be doing until like years down the road. But you need time to like create new things and not just be putting out fires all the time. You need time to be not just like to-do listing and surviving in your business, but to actually like do some things that are CEO-ish. And let me just say this. A lot of times entrepreneurs, what, Lola, you're so needy, honey. They don't like to think of themselves as a CEO. And my one good way of explaining this, hold on, well, if you're watching me on YouTube, come here, baby. The dog apparently needs to be seen. This is Lola. She's far from perfect, but gosh, she's cute. I don't know, honey, what's wrong? Can you wait for mama just a second? Okay. Um, but back when I owned my decorative painting company, this is the best example I can give you. There would be times that people would say to me, "Oh, so you're an artist." And I would feel so uncomfortable like with that title because in my head, maybe, an artist was somebody like I was thinking of like a fine artist. I was thinking of somebody who paints canvases and who actually is able to like really draw murals. And in my head, that's what an artist was. And so I would downplay my talents and I would be like, no, I'm a painter. Well, isn't that a type of artist? And I'd be like, yeah, but it's totally different. An artist is way more specialized. I'm just a painter. Like I would downplay it. And I noticed that a lot of CEOs, a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of business owners will do that as well. When I talk about the title of CEO, which is what you are, the chief executive officer of your company, when I talk about that, it's interesting that a lot of entrepreneurs, they're uncomfortable with that title. It's like the title of CEO feels too big for them. It's like it feels, more specialized. And they're like, no, I'm just a business owner. And they try to downplay things. Listen, you can use all three of those words interchangeably. I don't care. You do own a business. You are an entrepreneur, okay? Who is also, you've got to be the CEO, unless you've made somebody else the CEO of your business. And if you are, not in the millions of dollars a year yet, you probably haven't done that. So, you know, the thing with hitting the six-figure mark is so many six-figure earners, you're stuck in operator mode instead of like CEO mode. You're stuck in putting out fire mode instead of like leading mode, instead of visionary mode. You're stuck in the day to day. And when you hit $100,000 a year, there's different things that you have to do because otherwise you will stay stuck there. Okay. Well, one of you just like comment on YouTube if you're watching. There's just tell me, Jennifer, I believe you. I believe you. Um, because I've done this for a long, long time. And I've coached almost 25,000 women at this point. And I can tell you there are thresholds that you guys get stuck at, and 100,000 is one of them. And so a lot of times you get stuck here. And it's like $100,000, we'll consider that successful, right? We will absolutely consider that a success. But if you really are wired as an entrepreneur, that's not going to be enough for you because God wired you with also this craving for always something more. And so, by the way, if you've ever been shamed for that, like, let me just tell you, like, right now, you've got to rid yourself of shame from that in Jesus' name. Because what God has wired you with as an entrepreneur is exactly what you need to run on this side of heaven, what he's asking you to. And so there's always going to be this part of you that's like, gosh, I could have done a little better last year. I want to make a little more sales this year. Yes, it's great, but I also want to do a little more because that's the edge that you have that non-entrepreneurs do not. It's that part of you. It's the visionary piece where it's not lack of being content. It's that you're content with where you are, and yet you also want the next level. And I think that there's a lot of women walking around who are like, I should just be happy hitting 50K a year or 100K a year or 300K a year, whatever. And they're feeling guilty for wanting more. And there are people shaming them from wanting more. And there has to be at some point this decision that you make where you're like, you know what? If he didn't want you to have that little bit of hunger, that tiny bit of like competitiveness, which often is just with yourself, that ability to want a little bit more, like you have to understand this is how God wires entrepreneurs because this is how problems get solved on this side of heaven. Like that's all entrepreneurs are doing. You realize that, right? Entrepreneurs are gifted at solving problems through a product, through a service, through a consultation package, coaching, like you solve needs in the world. That's what entrepreneurs do. You dream up things of, ways to meet the needs of people. And so, of course, you're always going to have this thing in you, which is thinking of another thing, thinking of the next thing, not quite satisfied, wanting to make a little bit more. Does that make sense? So you can be successful, but you can also be stuck. And it's really frustrating. Let me just tell you, there was a season where I was stuck at $2 million a year for a couple of years in a row. And please don't listen to that and go, oh, yeah. No, like as somebody who is competitive with myself, okay? Because often it's not that we're competitive with other people in our industry. It's that we're just competitive with our own self, which is the way God wired us. All right. So it was really difficult for me because I'm like, why am I stuck at 2 million a year? Why can't I get to 3 million a year? Why can't I get to 4 million a year? And the thing is, like, I know I'm the bottleneck. I know the problem is me. What is that song? Is that a Taylor Swift song? I'm the problem, it's me. And so, as your business grows, and some of you have hit the $100,000 mark, or you've hit the 200 or 500 or whatever, and you're feeling like, okay, I should be glad that I'm here, right? Because it's your business is a success, but you're still frustrated, and I'm going to give you some of the reasons why. You're frustrated because your business has grown to a certain level, but your systems didn't. There's been nothing put into place where you've systemized doing everything so that you could get some of your time back. And anytime a business grows, but the systems don't, things will break. They just will. It's just what happens. Okay. You're frustrated because you're still wearing every single hat in your business. You're still making 100% of the decisions because you don't have a team. You don't have any employees. A lot of times you don't even have any contractors. And so you're frustrated because you're doing all the things. Because also, let me just go this far to say, if God really did wire you as an entrepreneur, there's also a lot of times this, I'm not going to say a desire, okay, because a lot of entrepreneurs don't want to do it, but it's the knowledge that, okay, I know that I need someone else, okay? I know that I need to let up some of my control. I know that I probably need to hire. And there's a rub there. And the rub is this. A lot of us entrepreneurs are also control freaks. We want things to be done the way that we want it done because we have a certain level of, pride that we take in what it is that we're doing. We have a certain way of doing things that we believe to be right. We think to ourselves, nobody else can do it the way that we can. And by the way, you're absolutely correct. And so then we don't hire any help, but then it's like, we know in our nowhere, this is keeping us stuck. And so it's like this internal rub because you don't want to give up control. And yet you know that the only way you can get past where you're stuck in your business is giving up some control. And I will tell you as surely as I'm sitting here, my friends, the sooner you let somebody else do some things in your business, the quicker you're going to get to 500K a year, the quicker you will hit 7 figures a year. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out. Look at anybody whose business is over, I will say, if anybody's business is generating over $300,000 a year, it is not just one person. It is not. They have people helping, people working with them, people partnering with them. They are outsourcing things. They are allowing other people to come in and do things. They have given up some of the reins, and now they have other people that are helping them. And that's how you grow. I always love to use like Joanna Gaines for an example. I love Joe. Got a picture of her here somewhere. Where is she? Here, one moment. If you're watching on YouTube, I have a wall here of some of the people that have mentored me the most from afar, but I met Chip and Joe several times. They're just as precious in real life as you would hope for them to be. So I've got a picture of them on my wall. I've got Dave Ramsey, Lance Wallnow, Lisa Bevere, the CEO and founder of Hobby Lobby, Teray Roberts, Sarah Jakes Roberts. Got them all over here on a little wall next to me. Because I did a whole podcast one time on proximity and how proximity matters. But what was I going to say? Oh, I use Joe as an example sometimes because there's a lot that Joe has her hands in. And right now, I don't think they're quite in, forefront in the news like they were, let's say 5 or 6 years ago when I first met them. But, she, the television show, also raising little kids, has the magazine, has a line of paint, has a line of products that are in Target and all the places. And I've used her as an example so many times. I'm like, do you actually think Joe is the one on the TV set who's actually like putting the sofa? And she's like, she's not. Do you think Joe's the one who's actually like sitting down, typing out things for the magazine? She's not. Do you think Joe is the one naming every paint? Like you guys, you can't grow to, and some of you, you're not wanting to grow to that magnitude, and I get it, but like, it is very difficult to get past $200,000-$300,000 a year at all without at least one other person helping you. And so if you're feeling super stuck and your business is, stuck at a certain size, you have got to give up some control and let some other people start helping you in your business. Because even when you hit that $100,000, like, yeah, you have more revenue coming in, but you also have more stress, more chaos, more responsibilities, more things that you've got to figure out, right? So let me give you just a couple of points. I mean, obviously one of the points is you got to hire some help. But in terms of if you feel stuck in your business, you feel like you're literally a prisoner to it at this point. Like, Jen, I don't even know. I don't even know what I need to do. Okay. First of all, let's see, how can you simplify some things? How can you not like decide on more things to sell, like I talked about in the last podcast episode, but instead, like, how do you be more strategic about what you already offer? How can you, bring other coaches in? How can you bring in some guests? How can you have a VA who helps you with some of the things in the background, the running of credit cards? Like, what can you do just to simplify? Okay. Not make more work for yourself to get to the next financial like level that you want to, but simplify already. Okay. What can you delegate and who can you delegate to? Not just hiring help all the time, but like letting go of the control, of the need to micromanage. Listen, if there's one thing, there's a lot of things that I don't do well in my business, but there's a couple things I do pretty darn good. And I think you could ask anyone on Team Allwood and they will tell you I delegate the heck out of my business. And I did it when I owned my painting company also. I've been delegating since the year 2000. When I am in the middle of, remodeling one of the Airbnbs that we bought, we have Bougie on the Beach, Bougie on Miramar Beach is our brand new one, and Bougie in the Desert. I wasn't there to watch all of the progress. I wasn't the one DIYing everything and doing all the things. Like I am somebody that hires, because when you hire experts at what they do, you save time. A lot of times you do end up saving money because time is money. And some of you, if you would just hire some of the right people to do some of the right things, you could hit that next threshold so much quicker. And instead, you're keeping yourself really stinking small. And you're frustrated because the reality is most of you know it. So the sooner you let go of some of the control, the quicker you're going to have the ability to like daydream again, to really like think and process and plan and strategize and get back to being the visionary of the company. And then you'll be able to get to the next level. Okay. Because you've got to somehow figure out ways to build a business that runs without you present every single second, a business that runs without you doing everything, a business that can run even if you're not, hustling your butt off every second of the day, a business that still has revenue coming in every day without you having to sit at your laptop. That's true freedom, friends. But it's only going to happen when you simplify the heck out of things in your business, when you stop reinventing the wheel every time you launch. Listen, you've got to create some systems. And I know as a person with a creative brain that when I used to hear people say that, talking about systems, all I would hear was boring in my brain. I'm like, systems equal boring. Because as a super passionate person, SPP, in addition to being a super responsible person, but as a super passionate person, systems sound boring. I like throwing spaghetti at the wall. I like coming up with new things. I like launching new things. I like seeing, what we can do. I like seeing what I can do. I like trying new things. I like flying by the seat of my pants. I am a lot of fun, but it also exhausts people. Okay. And so that only worked for so long. Me throwing spaghetti, at the wall and what can I do on this launch? And what kind of money can I make on this one? And it became glaringly obvious. Okay, Jen, you've got to get some help and you've got to get some sort of system to your launches so that you know that, okay, if I'm launching on, let's just pick out a day, April 1st, then I'm going to need 2 weeks of, promotion time ahead of that. And I'm going to need a week to like build out some emails and things. And I'm going to need a week to do like being able to figure out, okay, if this is the date that we're going to do the thing, here's the repeatable system that I've built in order to be able to launch effectively every time. It takes the guesswork out of launches. It takes the stress out of launches. It takes the pressure out of launches. And so you've got to get some systems in place. And I know if you're like me, you're going to think boring, but it's not boring because it brings a lot of freedom. And when you get some systems in place, then you kind of know like, well, based on what we've done before, if this many people sign up for my webinar, then this is probably the percentage that will buy. This is probably the revenue we'll make. And then you can be very systematic in your approach, in your planning, all the things. So simplify the heck out of your business, friends. Figure out some sort of a repeatable system for launching so you're not reinventing the wheel all the time. You're not just throwing spaghetti against the wall all the time. There's other things you can create, you can throw spaghetti against the wall, but when you're trying to launch, that's not it. And if you're trying to get past 100K, you've got to have some systems. Delegate, hire, give some crap up. You aren't as good at doing all the things as you think you are. Can I say that without you hating me? Listen, you got to let go of some of your ego. You want to get to $500,000 a year, the ego has to go away. You have to realize, okay, God really gifted me in this area, and this area. And so I'm going to put my head down and focus on this area, this area, and this area. And everything else I'm giving to somebody else in my business. Everything else I'm going to go ahead and hire someone. Not because I'm lazy, not because I don't want to do it, but because I'm smart and I'm strategic. And I understand that God never designed any of us to be doing all the things by ourselves. He never gifted any of us in all the things. There's no way you can be good at marketing and customer service and sales and coaching and what, like you can't, you guys, you just can't. And so the sooner you quit trying to do it, the better results you're going to have in your business. You will be able then to finally build a business that runs without you having to do all the things. And that's when you're going to hit your next like level of freedom. And so, gosh, I hope that this landed for somebody today. As you heard in the middle of this podcast, I am getting ready to do a webinar for those of you who are at the 6-figure mark, you're frustrated, you want to get beyond that. Go to jenniferallwood.com/webinar and get signed up for that. I would love to have you there with me. Again, it's for the 6-figure owners. It's for people who have hit 6 figures and you're wanting to get to your next goal, whether that's $500,000, $1 million, you name what that is. But I want you on that webinar, jenniferallwood.com/webinar. I will see you there. And I'm going to give you some really good strategy for getting past where you're currently stuck at in 2025. All right, friend. See you soon. Bye-bye. Easton, who knew I could be so passionate at 8 o'clock on a Saturday night after church? I mean, feeling a little froggy.